What would happen if 1/3 of your country's population died a horrible death? What if all your knowledge about your God came from one person? What if we had no internet? If you think you have it rough, think again.
Is our society heading towards a Renaissance or a Dark Ages? Do you know what the Renaissance or the Dark Ages are? If your answer is no, don't worry. We'll give you all the knowledge you need to be an expert on those times in history. The Dark Age was a depressing time in history. It was a time of decline of learning, decline of cultural interaction, and decline of literacy. Death and disease ravaged Europe, none more so than the Black Plague. The Black Death Plague is actually called the bubonic plague. Over 1/3 of the population died because of this deadly disease. Black rings would appear on your body, and you'd be dead in as quick as 3 days. You know the popular nursery rhyme, Ring Around the Rosie? Well, it's actually called Ring Around the Rosary, and it's about the plague. Ring around the rosary. Rings would be a sign of death, and common for people of a town to form a ring around the burning bodies. Pocket full of posies. Children threw rose petals on the bodies to make them smell better when they burned. Ashes, ashes. Burning bodies obviously created ashes. We all fall down. All would die soon. Feudalism was the most accepted form of government at that time. Kings owned all the land, but leased it to nobles. Despite what you may think, nobles were not necessarily rich. In fact, most were as poor as the peasants. Knights were given land in exchange for military service, and were actually richer than most. Serfs were close to being slaves, the main difference being that slaves belonged to people, but serfs belonged to property.
I like you, so I'm awarding you this piece of land, but I still own it. I'm just leasing it to you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Master, may I please have a bit of food?
No, I just gave you a loaf of bread last month. You should be good.
The Catholic Church was very influential to the people of that time. The Pope had political power, along with religious power. They were even more powerful than the king. During the Dark Ages, monks hand-copied each Bible. Thus, they were very few. The popes interpreted the Word of God and passed it on to the bishops, who passed it on to the priests, who passed it on to the people. So the Bible was only read by the Pope, meaning the people couldn't question their religion, and they were told what to believe.
Do it.
Aren't you done yet? Well, hurry up. I need to interpret the Word of God for all to know. The Renaissance was a time of rebirth. Rebirth of learning, rebirth of cultural interaction, and rebirth of reading. During this time, people placed an emphasis on secularism, which is world events, human force, and glorified humans. The Renaissance reawakened people to the effects of classical writing and art of Greek and Roman societies. Socrates became an important figure again. People started reading the book Republic by Plato, and humanism became a key philosophy. The printing press also helped in the birth of the Renaissance. The printing press was invented by Johannes Gutenberg in 1455. This could possibly be the single most important invention ever in history. This led ordinary people to have access to books such as the Bible. Think of it as a type of ancient internet. More books were produced in the first 50 years than in the entire time prior to 1455. As people became more educated, they started to question the Pope and his interpretation of the Bible. Hey, are you Johannes Gutenberg?
Why, yes I am.
You invented the printing press.
Yes I did. And look how many books I've made.
Like I said before, people were becoming more educated. As people had access to Bibles, they could interpret it in their own way. Quite a few people thought that the Catholic Church was wrong, so they started their own church, called the Protestant Church. Martin Luther was one of the biggest figures in this time. He was a monk who nailed 95 theses, or problems he saw with the church, on the door of Wittenberg Catholic Church. The church reformed itself after Pope Paul III called for the Council of Trent in 1545. What's this? 95 theses. Catholic Church does what? Renaissance man is someone who is good at many different things. Leonardo da Vinci was a Renaissance man. He was a painter, sculptor, inventor, scientist, and architect. Michelangelo was also a Renaissance man. He was the painter of the Sistine Chapel, a sculptor, and an architect. Galileo Galilei was another Renaissance man. He was an inventor, philosopher, and astronomer. He found out, by math and science, that the earth revolved around the sun, contrary to what the church was teaching. The church labeled Galileo a heretic and sentenced him to life imprisonment. After all of this information we've given to you, you should be able to make an educated opinion about which one we're heading to. One of the biggest inventions of our time is the Internet. Compare this to the printing press of the Renaissance. Do you see any similarities? Both inventions have revolutionized the way we get information and made it open to the public. Yes, right now, we're in a rough economic time, but if you look at the big picture, we have new technologies and scientific breakthroughs happening all the time. Our technologies and innovations have jump-started our society into a place where information is abundant and easily accessible. Only about 50 years ago, we didn't even have color TV. Now look how far we've come. Now we can get TV on our computers and cell phones. Even nowadays, in our schools, there's evidence that we are heading to a rebirth of learning, or you can even call it a refinement of learning. For example, take a look at our school's New Tech program. In this program, we have one-on-one computing and a group environment that has totally changed the way we learn today. So to us, this class and the New Tech program is almost like a rebirth of learning. With all the similarities, we think it's safe to say that we are closer to a Renaissance than a Dark Age. Do you share our opinion? Add a comment below and tell us how we did.